the beach, the wonderful, wonderful beach. We had so many
Talk about the
experiences.
bakery.
The bakery, cinnamon rolls. Everybody remembers that. Who taught the cooks how to make cinnamon rolls at the beach?
Who taught them?
Yeah.
I think the Lutherans, didn't they?
The Lutherans. Okay. They're different. There was Baptists, there were Methodists, there were Lutheran missionaries, there were Presbyterians, which we were. But we all were friends. We had tennis matches, tournaments, we had boat rides. We really suffered, didn't we? It's really hard to be a missionary. I remember Christmas time, we would get presents from 20 different churches.
Oh no, really?
I think all our supporting
Well, I don't know about that. I know we had one church
You want to put this down?
that celebrated Christmas in October for us.
Oh.
And sent packages. It took a while, for the package to get there.
Oh,
But they sent presents for all of you children.
really? Maybe you saved them for Christmas.
I think we did.
Yeah, because I don't remember that. But I remember we opened present after present, so Christmas was a big deal growing up.
But that was, I think, what they called it at their church. They called it Christmas in October.
Okay.
That was a mission thing.
Okay. Well, because they're all broke at Christmas time, so they thought of the missionaries ahead of time so they could
That was really nice.
get the... Now, what's that?
And then we'd ordered things out of the catalog, Montgomery Ward catalog, the Sears and Roebuck catalog.
Oh, yeah. We'd order Monkey Ward, clothes.
Bathing suits.
Yeah. Yeah. We didn't have sun lotion. We had to use Noxzema.
For sunburn.
Sunburn. We had quiet time from 12 to 2 because that was the hottest time. And then we'd put a layer of Noxzema, white Noxzema. And the boys we'd still get our noses burnt to crisp. We'd peel off the sunburn. Yeah, and my brothers were blonde and their hair would turn white. And the rest of them would be red because we'd get sunburned. So none of us died of cancer, though. Not yet. You got a little skin cancer, didn't you? Yeah. Anyway, and then came the days of sending your children to boarding school. How did that feel?
Well, that just became the natural way of life.
Yeah.
And of course, other people were doing it too.
Yeah.
So it wasn't traumatic. It was something you looked forward to. And after you went, then the others felt like they were left out, And
it was
they
fun.
Start looking forward to
Yeah. Yeah.
living in a dormitory.
But in reality, it's kind of hard to send your children away for most of the year when they're only in the 7th grade.
7th grade.
They're only like 11 or 12.
Right. But it was a safe environment. Other missionary kids, missionary teachers,
Right.
and it wasn't hard. And we made a lot of trips over the mountains, 3 mountain passes to get to see you on weekends, especially for athletic events.
Right.
And of course, once the family started getting smaller and I had more and more opportunities and possibilities as a mission outreach person, that was, fulfilling.
Yeah.
We did all kinds of things. I worked with women's in the Presbyterial. We did Bible memorization. We had contests to see who could memorize the most scripture.
With who?
In the Presbytery, women's.
Koreans or Americans?
Koreans.
Koreans.
Yeah. And we had one lady that always won. She would always win the contest. So that finally gave up. Everybody else gave up because she was so good at it.
But how would that work? What ladies were they?
Well, they were just country ladies from churches, and at the presbytery level, they would get together and do.
What's a presbytery level?
The presbytery is a group of churches.
Oh.
Right?
Okay.
And a group of presbyteries makes a synod, just like it does in America.
Okay.
And so these ladies were from our presbytery, and we would, challenge each other who could memorize those Bible verses. Okay.
Did you ever have ladies' retreats?
Not as such, no.
But you had gatherings. Gatherings.
I don't know, like not overnight type of
No,
thing.
not overnight, but like, would you have a daytime event?
I can't remember.
Okay.
Probably. They organized all that. I just did my Bible memorization on the side. That was one of the little activities of the presbytery. They were all in charge. Koreans were all in charge of everything.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Remember.
But you also taught nurses.
I did. And it started before anything else with music.
Oh.
We had a little choir.
Okay.
I had a choir, and we practiced in the chapel.
With nurses. Nurses.
I think it was all nurses.
Now, and the reason Mom worked with nurses is because she's a nurse, and we lived right beside a mission
medical center.
A mission hospital called a medical center, the hospital, the Jesus Hospital. We lived right beside that in Cheonju.
Yesu Pyeongwon.
Yeah, Yesu, Jesus. And so you started working with nurses when we got older, and you had time, more time.
Well, before that, I taught at the Bible school some too.
Yeah.
There was a Bible school right under our compound there. Remember how it looked?
Yeah. What was the name of it?
The Ming tree was up here, and it went down, and under there was Hanil. Was it Hanil?
Nursing school. Hanil Nursing School.
No, Bible school.
Oh, really? Okay. I got it mixed up.
And then we had many opportunities for teaching English.
Right.
There would be high school boys that would come. We'd have classes in our school chapel.
Was that free?
Oh, yeah.
It was an opportunity to share the gospel.
Oh, yeah. We used the Bible as a textbook.
Yeah. So were some of them...
We had no limits. We weren't under any kind of persecution from the Korean government at all.
Well, were some of those young Korean boys were not believers?
They were high school boys of all sorts.
Yeah, so you never know.
They just wanted to learn English.
Yeah. And so you used the Bible as a text, and they agreed.
Yeah.
So you were able to finally do some missionary work besides raising your children, which that's important. And we were ready to get out of the house when you were about 12. Anyway, so we enjoyed going to boarding school with our friends. Whether we studied or not is a different matter. But we had fun.
Well, you did well, didn't you, in your studies?
Oh, no.
All of you.
No. Maybe Sam and Nancy did well. They were the good kids. We all passed.
You did well.
I did not like school. I liked art class. And I passed. But I didn't understand why we had to learn why TVs work. I didn't understand. I wasn't interested in school at that time. But I was real interested in relationships and boyfriends and, that kind of thing.
And girlfriends you had.
I had girlfriends. Yeah, lots of girlfriends. Speaking of Chunju, before that, we went to boarding school. There were some demos in Chunju, but you don't really remember.
In Chunju?
That Dad got hit in the ear with a rock. The Koreans came
right.
up.
That was in Chunju,
They came up the hill and threw rocks or something. And you hid. When you first were in Chunju, I think. I remember I was
I can't remember what that was all about, honey.
Well, I remember I was real young, maybe 6 or 7. And Margaret and I, maybe Janet, were sitting on the hill above the old hospital. The first Jesus hospital. On that hill. And our Ajamani came and said, "Quick, go home. Because the Korean boys were coming up the hill, angry. That's all I remember. And then I remember Dad got hit in the ear with a rock. That's all
I remember. It was something called the Battle of Pritchard's Porch.
Yeah, that was near Pritchard's house.
Margaret Pritchard.
Because her house was at the medical school or another house down by the hospital.
Their house was called the medical house.
I know, but there was other houses, remember, down by the hospital.
Yes.
Was that not her first house?
Margaret Pritchard, no.
Oh, who lived there?
She was, those were the Cranes and different doctors would live in at different times. The Kellers.
The Cranes, they moved up with the Kellers. But below the hospital.
I guess they tore down the old single medical house and put a triplex up there for single people. We had various short-term people that would come out.
Yeah.
Contractors,
right.
missionaries,
right.
Martha Cove, different people.
Yeah, and that was the spot where us children were terrorized. Every year they would give shots. And the children, my perspective is the children's perspective. I would have nightmares about going to that house to get shots every year, right?
I don't know.
The medical house.
I don't remember that.
And they had a telephone that was, it was on the wall, and you take up this thing, looks like a what? To talk into it.
Yeah.
I had a nightmare that thing at the medical house would suck you into it. It was terrifying. And we'd get shots there, and everybody was crying. And I had a nightmare about that.
Those telephones.
A reoccurring nightmare.
We should remember those telephones.
Yeah.
They came, we were told, from Montreat.
Mm-hmm.
And they gave them to the Korea mission. And they were a box, like maybe about this big.
Mm-hmm.
Every house had a telephone in their house. And I don't know how they were connected, whether we had wires or how it worked.
But it was only on the compound.
Only on the compound.
And you had either beep, beep.
Yeah, you had one, you could
a
ring
short
it.
or a
I think
long.
it had a crank on the side. And you could ring short and long.
Yeah.
So we used short, long, like Morse code.
I think ours was short, short, short.
Yeah, we were short, short, short.
Yeah.
And hospital had one, I think.
Oh, they had one.
if anybody had a baby or was any news, they went was big long, and everybody was supposed to listen. But if it wasn't your ring, you were on your honor not to pick it up and listen. What were you none of your business?
But you could hear it if you wanted. I remember calling the Seals house to see if Jenny was there. And so I dialed the Seals. Maybe it was 2 shorts and a long or something. And I dialed, and Uncle Dave Seal picked up. And I was a little kid, and I said, "Hi, is Jenny here?" And he said, "No, but she's here." And I didn't know what to do. I remember that.
You should have said, "Is Jenny there?"
I should have.
That's
So I remember
cute.
these little things like that. I remember playing hospital in Jenny's attic. But she was always the head doctor, like her dad.
Oh.
I was probably the Ajamani. I don't know.
Oh, those telephones were something else. That was really memorable, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you'd send us off to boarding school, and we were so excited. We picked a roommate. We had matching bedspreads. Who was my first roommate? Was it Jenny? Might have been Jenny.
I don't know.
And we went on a train for 3 hours, just us kids.
Oh, yeah.
The parents didn't even go. Why not?
I guess
You trusted us.
somebody was going to meet you.
Yeah. They put us on the train. We hung out of the train door over bridges. We were dangerous. But you trusted us. And we had fun. We'd turn the chairs facing each other. We'd play games.
Listen, we trusted you with a lot.
A lot.
And when you were big, we did too. Remember?
I know.
We trusted you to go on a trip to Bangladesh.
Yeah.
All by yourself.
I was 20 then. I was an adult. Yeah.
Well, what could we do?
Well, Johnny has some stories that I'm going to let him tell about riding on trains as a kid, driving a train as a kid.
Oh.
Yeah. Maybe you didn't know about something.
Did they let him help?
They let him drive the train. Let him tell. Yeah.
Well, Danny has some stories to tell too about train rides in India, I think it was. Getting sick and the train catching on fire.
That was me.
That was you.
The train caught on fire.
That was you?
Yes. In India.
Well, Danny's was eating snake blood or something.
Yeah. Drinking snake blood. Yeah.
Drinking.
Yeah, we all
my.
had crazy experiences. But you parents, you totally trusted. We would walk downtown at night. Nobody heard us.
At night?
At night. You trusted us. I remember that. At the beach, other kids had curfews, but we didn't. You trusted us.
You know why?
Why?
Because when I was growing up, the other Ruthie Clements, her mother didn't trust her. I mean, she didn't mistrust her, but she was always checking on her, always calling to make sure she was okay. And I didn't want to be like that.
That's why.
Because my mother didn't do that, but Clem's mother did.
Yeah. Well, one time at the beach, an army man gathered us missionary kids in a circle at night on the beach and passed around weed.
Oh my
grass.
God. An army
you
man?
smoke. Yeah, you can smoke grass.
What?
And he passed it around and said it won't do anything unless you inhale it. So we all tried it. I was like 14.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And we all tried it and nothing happened. I was so disappointed. So I remember I walked home thinking, that was boring. Nothing happened. I wanted to see what it was like. And I went home and I remember I told you about it and you didn't seem surprised. You were like, oh, really? And I think either that same night or a similar night, I remember looking up at the sky. Maybe I felt guilty. And I remember looking up at the sky and thinking, maybe there is no God. maybe there is no God. What if there's no God? I remember thinking that. And then I felt kind of empty. Like, oh, that would be sad. But I thought, well, who knows? Maybe there's no God. What? Just because my parents think it's true doesn't make it true. So I really wrestled with that until and I thought, Christianity's boring. Church is boring. I want to have fun. I don't want to do boring. Maybe when I'm older I'll be a Christian, but right now I want to have fun. So that was my state of mind until I realized I saw God in Marilyn Moffatt.
Yes.
And she was shining. She was a senior and I was a freshman.
Oh.
And she said she was my friend and she wanted me to be her roommate. Even though I was a freshman, she was a senior. And she was shining with God. And I said, why are you always happy? And she said, you really want to know? And she took me into a dorm room, shut the door, and said, I'll tell you why. It's the Holy Spirit.
Oh.
And she said, I was like this. I was trusting God on one foot and myself on the other foot, and I finally jumped.
Yeah.
And I that really clicked with me, and I thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
And a little later, I was in the shower, and I jumped.
Yes, and you told us about it.
And I, at that moment, abandoned myself to God, and I was a different person from then on.
I know.
My eyes were open to God's glory. It was like, wow.
Yeah.
It really was like not magical, but I don't like that word, but
spiritual.
it was a transforming. I abandoned myself to God, and I even heard a wind blowing outside. It was nighttime, and I thought, that's the Holy Spirit, the wind of the Spirit, like it talks about in the Bible. And I was a different person. Everything looked bright, clean, and I didn't have to understand anything. I just knew that I trusted God of the Bible with my life. And from then on, I was like trying to tell people, but no one would listen. And I called you and I said, why didn't you tell me? This is awesome. You said, we thought we did. But I was like, no. Wow. And I had a boyfriend. I was around 14. Alan Richardson was my boyfriend. And I told him, and he said, you must be taking drugs. Because he liked to take drugs. A lot of the kids were experimenting with drugs. I said, no, it's the Holy Spirit. But, you know, people didn't know unless it happened to them.
I wonder where he is now.
He's in heaven, or hopefully heaven. He died. Did you know that?
I mean, spiritually.
He died.
He was okay, though?
No. He laughed and said, I have demons.
What?
Yeah, at one point. He was a missionary kid. He was real cute, and I liked him. Remember? But I went to his house in America, and he would say, I have a demon, just to tease me. And I tried to tell him about God. But he never got married. I don't know what happened.
What was his name?
Alan Richardson. My first boyfriend.
Yeah, we prayed about that.
You did.
Alan Richardson.
Anyway, that was my testimony of really giving myself to God. And before that, when I was 11, I went to Camp Mounto Pines.
Oh,
remember?
Yes, yeah.
And I threw a pine cone in the fire, confessed, because they said, if you don't, you need to believe in your heart and confess with your mouth. This was before I was filled with the Holy Spirit. I threw a pine cone in the fire because I thought, I never confessed in public, you know. So you had to throw a pine cone in the fire. So I did. No one else did, but I did.
No one else did?
Well, at first no one moved. And I said, I'm going to do it. So I did it. And other kids started doing it. That was an experience in my life where I made a public profession of faith. But then after that, I doubted.
Uh-huh.
And then I had to be really abandon myself to God. And then I went to America when I was 16. And all these hippies in those days. After the Vietnam War, the hippies were becoming Jesus people and having big prayer meetings in a circle in people's houses for 3 hours at a time, crying and praying. And Julie Coddington was part of that. And she told me how to pray in the Spirit, in tongues. Just pray it. It's like trusting God knows. You don't have to know. God knows what you're praying and helps you pray. And it was wonderful.
She did that.
Yeah, and then tell me about you and Dad came on furlough, and that happened to you, the experience of being filled with the Holy Spirit.
Right. Because of your influence with a group.
In America?
In America.
Oh, what do you remember?
It's a household of faith.
Yeah.
And you were going to these meetings, and we thought we better go check it out. And so we did, and you were all singing praises out of the Psalms.
Wow.
And kids were sitting all over the living room and up the staircase, and just really it was so wholesome, wonderful worship. We were very impressed. And then we started going to some meetings with Dave and Ellen Ross.
Mount Perrin.
And Mount Perrin Church of God in Atlanta, Georgia. Oh my goodness, yes.
And did you have an experience of a renewal of the Holy Spirit?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, a one-time thing or just slowly were...
Oh, both.
Okay.
We were starting to find out about the Spirit being alive and hidden in the cracks between all through the Bible. We hadn't even seen him before. By a Pentecostal missionary that came to Chunju. She lived downtown, and she came to our house, and we had fellowship with her.
What was her name?
Her name was Miss Carlock, something like that.
I didn't know her.
Anyway, we hadn't accepted him at that point. But then when we went on furlough, it happened, little by little. We went to a place called, had the word eagle in it, conference ground somewhere.
Eagle's Nest.
I can't
We
remember.
went to Melody Land Christian Center.
No, that was later.
Yeah.
On the way back.
Yeah.
And I think your brothers and sisters almost all went to Melody Land.
Yeah, we all were there, and they were talking about being slain in the Spirit. You know, if you abandon yourself so much, you fall over to God.
Yeah.
And I remember Paul said, "I'm not going to fall over," but I was willing, and I think I fell over. You have to be willing. And we made a commitment. It was the days of Bill Gothard teaching seminars for young people. And it was like the Bible says, God will show you what to do through your parents. Listen to your parents.
What?
Bill Gothard said, listen to your parents. God will lead you through your parents. Children, obey your parents. Listen to them. God is going to lead you. And Bill Gothard said, it was really good Bible teaching for teenagers.
Basic youth conflict.
Yeah, big seminars. Thousands of teenagers would come. And another thing I remember about that is put your idols on the altar. Like whatever it is you love, give it to God. Put your idol on the altar. I think didn't want to give up. Anything you don't want to give up, your dreams, your goals, your job, whatever. I put on the altar my desire to be married.
What?
My desire to be married. I had to put it on the altar. Give it up. That was really hard because I didn't want to give that up. I don't know if I totally could. But
I don't think you told us.
I think God had to help me. Well, I had to trust God with that because I didn't want to give that up for God. And then God gave me the best husband ever. But anyway, this is supposed to be about you, not me. Sorry.
Well, that was good.
I'll stop.
Glory to God.
Yeah. Well, I went on to ORU because it it was an exciting Christian atmosphere. And people were talking to God,
Oral Roberts University.
excited about
with
God.
a prayer tower.
Yeah.
You took art there.
Yeah. Right. Right.
You graduated from there?
Yeah.
No. Or did you?
Yeah, I went to Korea for a year and, took art at Iwa and different Korean places.
And then you went to somewhere in Atlanta.
Oh, yeah, Agnes Scott.
Agnes Scott.
I lived at home a little bit, yeah.
You lived at home. And where did you graduate from?
ORU.
That was the last of the...
I went back to ORU after you left. You were on furlough, so I lived with you, went to Agnes Scott. And then...
That was great.
That was nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about Chunju a little bit more. What you did after your kids went to boarding school or they started to go.
Mm-hmm.
What were you able to do with spiritual care and nursing?
Well, you see, the nursing school had been run by Margaret Pritchard and then Janet Keller and then by Helen And Helen was the best thing that could happen. It should be in Korean hands. She came and approached me to see if I could help teach something called spiritual care. And I was delighted, but I didn't know how to do that. It was something I said, well, that would be wonderful. I think it's important, but I have to really pray about that. And so that's what we did. And little by little, the Lord gave us all kinds of input, everything from books to videos to all kinds of resources, and especially one by Judy Shelley, which was called Spiritual Care, put out by InterVarsity Christian Fellowship. And that became kind of a backbone for my work.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the beginning. So what we did was teach in the classroom and then go into the wards at the bedside and practice. Mm-hmm. And each student had to have a case study. And we worked together. I went in groups of 3 or 4 or 5, small groups, probably not as many as 5. And we would go to the bedside and talk with the patient. And every patient had a caregiver from home. It's not like in America. Somebody always sat beside the patient, I think probably around the clock.
Called a pogoja.
Mm-hmm. I guess so.
I remember that word.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They would sleep with them, bring them food, the patients.
They had a little kitchen where they could be used and help them eat what they wanted to eat. And that was part of their care. It was a very good idea.
Yeah.
So we had an audience, and then usually it was other people in the ward too that could listen in.
Yeah.
But we would interview the patient, and I would try to stand in the back and let the student do the talking, because of course my Korean was limited anyway. So the two of them could engage, and the student had learned to go down kind of an order of how to do. So she would ask the patient questions about how they felt about themselves, and then she would record that and how she observed the patient. So that was subjective, S for subjective, and O for objective, observations. And after observations came A, and that was assessing what the patient's needs are.
Well, give an example.
Well, for example, the patient was paraplegic, say, and you assessed what his or her, usually it was a man, like he'd been in a motorcycle accident. That would be a very good typical case. And had lost the use of his legs. And that meant he had lost his job. And so we had to assess where he was spiritually and then come up with a P for plan, what to do to help him with Bible verses and prayer. And
what if he wasn't a Christian?
if he wasn't a Christian, and we presented the gospel to him, yeah.
Were they always receptive or not always?
They were pretty good. Korean patients were. They'd
Pretty
already
accepted to the
in
gospel.
the environment of the Jesus Hospital.
Oh,
where
yeah.
the evangelists had already probably gone around and talked to them.
So it was called Jesus Hospital, so that's part of their care.
So you had your SOAP, and
Soap.
then came the implementation.
That spells soap.
It spells soap. And then you had implication of it, and then the evaluation. So you have SOAPIE, SOAPIE.
Oh.
And after the evaluation, you start over again and reevaluate.
Okay.
So that was kind of a framework that they had to work in.
Okay. Did you make that up?
I think so. I can't remember if that came out of Judy Shelley. I think I made it up. It just kind of developed.
I bet they appreciated that.
And then you illustrated the book.
I did?
Well, I had a Korean that helped me illustrate the book itself, but you put the cover on it.
Okay.
A picture of a girl, a nurse with a Bible in her pocket.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I bet those Koreans really appreciated that because...
Well, they did, and I loved meeting with the faculty at the nursing school. They had prayer every morning and Bible reading. I had given them all nicknames, and we became good friends. We did social things together.
Mm-hmm.
We hardly ever talked about our families, personal things. That kind of was somehow wasn't shared too much.
I wonder why.
I don't know, but the lady that helped me with the translation was the closest friend, and her name is on the cover of the book because she's the translator.
What's her name?
Chung-Suk.
Okay.
Chung-Suk. I did get to know a little about her family. She was still a bride. She didn't have any children yet. But, yeah, I wish I could have kept in touch with her. I didn't keep in touch with any of them except Helen Helen retired to America, and she lives in Chicago. And I still have her email address, but I haven't kept up with her lately.
Is she your age or younger?
I'm not sure her age.
Because you're 94.
Yeah.
Maybe she's pretty old.
Maybe she's pretty old. She was inspiration to me in that she always wore the same dress to the faculty meetings. It was a navy blue.
Yeah.
And I think she must have had two of them, so she could wash one. And I kind of do the same thing now, wear the same thing every day.
And you think
in
of
honor
her.
of her.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, who's the boss of that? Yeah.
And then, of course, we had spiritual care conferences in Korea with the nursing schools in Seoul and in Gwangju. So we were able to, broaden out a little bit.
Yeah.
And then, of course, my book eventually became translated. Well, it became a textbook.
Wow.
And it was translated to up to 8 or 10 different languages.
Wow.
And most notably, in my heart and mind, was Chinese, because the Lord led me to a Christian Chinese lady one time who was very interested in it, and she took it upon herself to make sure that it got put into Chinese. And Sam has since then distributed it widely in China among nursing schools.
Did you do it in African language for Danny's?
I can't remember, I'm sure.
Or what were some of the countries? Do you remember?
I don't remember. I should have written it down. Probably somewhere it's written down.
Yeah.
I would meet missionaries different times, on furlough, different places. The Lord would open opportunities, meet different people, and missionaries going to other places that were interested. There were medical missionaries usually, and they wanted to get it in their language for their nursing schools.
Wonderful.
I'm just curious now if it's still in circulation. I'm kind of scared to find out.
God knows which seeds.
Well, it was timeless. It's something that doesn't go out of date.
Yeah, but
because basic spiritual needs are the same.
Oh yeah, but we scatter seeds.
Right.
And there's different seeds and different times and different so God knows.
And He'll harvest them.
Yep. He makes them grow.
So that was a wonderful part of our time. After your children were gone, we could spend more time with Korean people and doing things. They gave me an office in the nursing school, and I would go over there every day and type away on my word processor.
I remember you typing on your computer, and when you moved to the Seals house, after the Seals left, you moved into their house up on the hill. And I remember you typing a lot from home.
I don't remember doing it at home, but probably.
Well, you were doing something. And
I remember sitting in the Seals house in a rocking chair knitting. Yeah. And then we had, let's see, who were the other missionary ladies? We gathered together a lot of Korean women and had women's parties and teas and get-togethers in that house.
And Quincy was your friend, your cook, your maid.
Yeah. But she was close. She was the one I kept in touch with after retirement. I still do.
Oh, really?
We remember each other at Christmas every year.
Oh, how is she?
She's fine. She's a grandmother now, too.
Tell her hi.
I wished for her every once in a while when I'm trying to pull my covers up at night. I think, I wish I had Quincy to tuck me in.
Oh, so please tell her hello.
She would cover me with a Afghan if I took a nap.
Please tell her hello next time.
Okay.
She knows me.
She'd go to the beach with us. Remember?
Yeah.
Her husband was a funny-looking, very cute, though, a gentleman that liked to play the trumpet.
Oh.
And he became an elder in his church. He played the trumpet at church. And when we retired, your dad gave him his trumpet.
You reminded me of Aunt Mary's bones.
Oh, she played the bones.
Yeah.
I don't know how she did that.
That you missionaries would get together. I remember the fondest memories of when I was older, going with you to a different missionary's house, walking along the path at night, and having little prayer meetings. And sometimes you would have parties, a lot of times. And Aunt Mary would play the bones, whatever that means.
Whatever that means. She had dry bones between her fingers.
Oh,
somehow she made music out of them.
Yeah. And Uncle Dave, her husband, would play
the violin
so dramatically.
He was fiddler on the roof.
Oh, okay.
At the beach.
All right. And who else? You and Dad were the singers.
We sang, so did a lot of people sang. And we had people play the piano, Ruth Durham, and Alma Grubbs.
Yeah.
Alma would accompany me. We would sing downtown at what was that place called? It was kind of a civic center.
Uh-huh.
I remember one time the lights went out, and what was that? We had to keep on without any
Where were you?
music. We were
At the
downtown
Civic Center?
in Shanju.
Oh, wow. Wow, yeah. And that's why you had so many fun musicals at the beach. All the missionaries had talents of
Yeah.
acting and singing.
We had, what was that? We did the Grasshopper one time.
Yeah.
Oh, that was really fun.
And I remember in college or high school, I would come help paint the backdrops for these musicals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
Dad played some comedy parts
Yes, he
with
did.
a tall black hat.
Mm-hmm.
What was he? Some funny guy.
Oh, gosh. What
Comical.
were they called? Oh.
Poobah.
Shears and Robust.
Oh, dear.
Shears and Robust.
Oh,
Shears and Robust.
that reminds me of the missionary meetings
Yeah.
where they would have, do your ears hang low? Do they wobble to and fro? All kinds of skits. And I can't pay the rent. Why can't you pay the rent? You know, all kinds of skits. These missionaries were characters they would put on. And you and Dad, I remember, would sing How Great Thou Art in a duet, and you could hear the ocean behind you. That was one of my best memories.
What was the song?
How Great Thou Art.
Oh, yeah. In Korean and English.
At the beach. I remember that.
And we sang at the beach a lot, too.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I remember that.
And one time at the beach on a Sunday morning, everybody was so happy that a group of sailors, the Underwood's boat, had been in trouble out in the ocean.
Oh.
And they finally came home safely.
Oh.
And they were so happy that everybody was okay. And I was singing that day. And I remember them telling me afterward how much they appreciated it because it was His Eye is on the Sparrow, and I know He's watching me.
They were scared.
Yeah.
They could have
They
died.
knew He was watching them.
Yeah. Yeah. So, now we were going to also talk about furlough. What is a furlough?
Well, originally, I think furloughs were every 7 years. They must have gotten it from the Bible somehow.
7?
7. But by the time we went to Korea, they were every 5 years.
So you would go to Korea or some other country for 5 years before you could go back to America.
When you were a baby, we went with clothes for 5 years for you. 5 years
But
clothes.
your parents came and visited.
My parents came
once.
And little by little, we were able to purchase more and more things out there.
And you could, then they reduced it to 3 years.
But later they reduced
Or
it
2
to
years.
4 years.
4.
And then you could take something called a short furlough.
Okay.
A short term.
Okay.
Because the children's education or weddings or things would interfere so much with your life.
And
airplanes became into being.
Airplanes were more easy.
And they were cheap enough.
I remember as a kid playing on the floor of an airplane for hours.
On the floor?
Yeah. So much.
Where?
On airplanes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, as a kid.
I remember Johnny learning to walk on one of those airplanes.
Oh.
In fact, it was the first flight we ever took.
Oh.
Of course, we went to Korea by freighter, but after that, everything was by air.
Yeah.
But that first flight back on furlough, Johnny was learning to walk.
Okay.
And of course, you just have an aisle, and he could walk between people, and he would go to this man's cigar and this lady's earrings and this person's bracelet, and they all welcomed him. He was so cute, toddling up and down the aisle.
Yeah. So furloughs, I bet you looked forward to those. We could go to Donnie's, McDonald's, and get ice cream and milkshakes and French fries.
Banana splits.
Oh. And Krispy Kremes. I remember you ate a whole, either dozen or half dozen at once.
Oh, donuts.
I remember that. And you were like, I can't believe I ate that whole box.
I can't either. I don't believe that.
No, you did. But it was
12?
either 6 or 12.
Hopefully it was only 6.
Might have
That's
been
bad
12.
enough.
But what is your memories of furloughs? First was Richmond. You'd go to Richmond.
Yeah, Richmond was adjacent to
Oh, yeah.
the seminary,
Union.
whatever it was called,
Union
the Presbyterian
Theological
Seminary there.
Union Theological Seminary.
Union, that's right.
Mom's a little deaf.
Richmond, Virginia, Union Theological Seminary, and they had a special education for Christian CEs, Christian educator, like women that worked in churches as CE.
Yeah.
Is that what they were called? DCE, Director of Christian Education. And they had a program to educate them.
Mm-hmm.
And they had among it a demonstration kindergarten. And this demonstration kindergarten had one wall that was glass, one-way glass.
Ah.
So the students could sit behind and observe the children being taught correctly.
Oh.
And one thing that was correct was you didn't teach children scary Bible stories.
Oh.
And I never agreed with that.
No.
You didn't teach children about Moses being captured in the basket. Well, I don't know why not, because the ending is so wonderful, But anyway, they had different things they taught you.
Yeah.
So we were able, as missionaries on furlough, to enroll our children in that kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
And little Marty was one of the children.
I was 5.
You were 5.
The first furlough.
And we would sit behind the observation glass
and
watch them. She had a big art easel, and she was always doing art. She'd bring home these huge pictures every day.
You're talking about me.
We put them on the door. We had 2 nails sticking out of the door, and we put one up every day, put up a new picture every day.
Could you tell I loved art?
Of course you did.
But more than other kids.
Oh, you did.
You think?
Mm-hmm.
There's something else you remembered. Oh, the teacher was Mrs. Blueberry.
Her name was Newberry, but you called her Miss Blueberry, and she loved it.
But there's something else you remember. I remember sitting in a circle, and one boy was staring at me. Or no, I was staring at him, and he said, "Don't stare." I remember that. What else? Do you remember anything else about that?
No, I remember they had you sit on a circle.
Mm-hmm.
It had a name for the carpet.
Yeah, and we could walk home to Mission Court.
Yeah, and I think they had some discipline problems with you.
Me?
Yeah.
Why?
Oh my gosh, I wish I could remember what that was all about. We had to go and talk to them about it.
Oh dear. Sounds like me. We're a little rebellious, mischievous. I didn't like rules.
When you were home, you were very good.
Oh, really? Sometimes my kids were really, like Bethany was very good at school. Then she'd come home and fall apart.
Oh.
I guess I was good at home, but then I didn't like to be good at school.
I wish I could remember what that was all about.
But do you remember Danny was hit by a car?
Yes.
Another furlough there.
Right. At Richmond.
Tell about that.
I think he was playing with an orange.
Yep.
And it rolled in the street.
Yeah.
And he went after it, and a car hit him.
Yep.
And that was a side street, and there was no excuse for
I
it.
remember that clearly. I saw
You were scared.
the car hit him, and he flew up in the air, or something like that, and he had a concussion.
He had a concussion.
We all went to you went to the hospital.
We had to take him to the hospital, and they kept him, I think, just overnight.
Yeah. And he was okay. He just couldn't remember something much.
He was perfectly okay.
And that's why Danny is the way he is today. That's his excuse. No, he recovered very quickly.
That boy, now he's in Africa.
Yeah.
and he's coming back for his first son's wedding. And when he gets here, the wedding is near here, he's going to find all those packages there you see along waiting for him. He thinks that he's ordered.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So he's
an engineer.
He married Africa in every way.
He's married to Africa.
He is.
In every way.
He had little African friends in.
He had an African friend when we lived in Decatur.
Yeah.
In Decatur. Yeah. We haven't talked about Decatur yet.
Okay, so another missionary place was Decatur, Georgia. But before we moved there, Mission Court, I remember a big dog circled me. I was 5. I've been scared of dogs ever since.
Circled you?
That was a bad memory I had. A big dog was circling.
I think the Grubs were on furlough there with us.
They were there. Yeah. And then we had furloughs in Decatur, Georgia, when I was in the 6th grade. So.
Also in
6, 7, 8, 10.
Richmond, your daddy was in the hospital too.
Oh.
He had a hemorrhoidectomy.
Oh.
And I was going to pick him up and bring him home afterward on a Sunday. And there, you remember, Rennie Avenue was off of Chamberlain Drive or some big dual highway.
That was it.
And between those roads was a hump, a grassy strip. And to get over to turn left, you had to go over that hump to turn left. Well, I was on my way to pick your daddy up, and my car got stuck on the hump. And no sooner did I get stuck Sunday morning than a rescue squad came, and I didn't know what I was going to do. They hopped out of the car. They said, "Have you out of there in a minute, lady." It was like
God provided.
I prayed, and God answered me.
I remember that. Like God answered immediately.
Were you in the car with me?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
I'll never forget it.
That reminds me.
It was an angel for sure.
Yeah. And you said it was an angel. And yeah, it must have been. That reminds me of our Land Rover in Korea going to the beach, fell into a ditch upside down, and we were all in the Land Rover.
Not upside down, on
Sideways?
its side.
But it was very disorienting.
Yeah, we didn't have seatbelts.
Yeah, we didn't have seatbelts, and we had to climb out the window. No. And a man came along with a ladder.
With a ladder.
Out of the blue. And helped us.
The ladder came right across to the window, and we all climbed out. And we went home we were going from Gwangju because we went back to Cheonju, as far as Cheonju, to spend the night and dry out our clothes before going on to the beach.
Oh, really? Okay.
Everything got wet.
Wow. And the ditch had water in it.
It was a irrigation ditch.
I don't remember
the water rose up. Daddy was in the driver's seat, went down. He went under the water.
He did?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Scared me to death.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, so it must have been on the left side of the road.
The car was on a dike between paddy fields. And I don't know what caused us to turn over, whether it was oncoming car or what. I don't remember what caused
He was under the water?
He did. His legs went under the water.
Okay.
I was so worried about his legs.
Oh, why?
I guess your children were all in the back seat.
I remember that. I have a memory of that.
There were 4 seats in the back.
Yeah. No seatbelts.
No.
It just suddenly, the ceiling is the side of the car, so it's weird.
I don't know what caused the accident.
And a man came along with the ladder right then.
A farmer. I guess let's see, how did they... Then some kind of a tractor came and pulled the car back up, and we were able to drive it home somehow, I guess.
Wow.
Or drive it to Cheonju.
Cheonju?
Chunju was halfway between Gwangju and the beach, I guess.
Oh, maybe we lived in Gwangju then.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I was little then.
So there weren't that many children.
3.
And we probably had a trailer.
Yeah. Oh,
It must have gone in the ditch, too.
Oh, my goodness.
I don't know.
What a... God took care of us. So we were talking about furlough, and we all got baptized in the Holy Spirit because, and all the Jesus people were becoming. I mean, all the hippies were becoming Jesus people, and it was a. I think it was a revival in America.
Right. Well, I think these revivals do take place over history, and when Grandma Folta heard about it, she was thrilled because she said, yeah, when I was young, I experienced something like that too.
Wow.
And then it died down kind of, you know. But I don't see this dying down that much. It's kind of changed form, and there have been things that have been abuses that weren't healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And
the charismatic movement.
The charismatic movement.
Yeah. So did Grandma Green had an experience in Czechoslovakia?
I think so, when she was a teenager.
Oh, that's wonderful. I think I've read different books that God does that. Has revivals. That was a huge American revival.
Yeah.
All over America. And it reached us teenagers in Korea, missionary kids. Yeah. So then you went back to America. Oh, on the way back, Johnny and I were talking about going to Anaheim Christian Center and getting slain in the Spirit. But Johnny and Paul refused to fall over. But I happily fell over.
That was called Melody Land.
Melody Land Christian Center. And they also challenged us to read the Bible 5 minutes a day, and that really helped me to.
5 minutes a day?
5 minutes a day. That really helped me to read it every day, almost every day since then, because I made that promise to God. And now I can't stop reading it. You know, you start and you just, you don't want to stop.
Can't put it down.
Yeah.
Right.
So anyway, we went back to Korea.
Yes, and when we went back to Korea, other people had been experiencing this kind of thing too, but not everyone in our mission group.
Yeah.
I know there were the Rosses.
Yeah.
And we would go to different towns for meetings and have fellowship, and that included other Protestant missionaries and Catholic missionaries too. So it was like really crossing
all believers,
boundaries. It was wonderful. Yeah.
Boundaries. Yeah.
Helped each other. And the Shaws, John and Sharon Shaw came out around that time, and they'd had a wonderful experience in Montreat. When we got back to Korea, the things seemed different. We felt like things were more beautiful, more colorful, and I just felt like instead of things bothering me that were interruptions to what was going on, I looked at those interruptions as opportunities. And it was a whole new framework in my mind.
Did you feel like scales had fallen off your eyes because everything looked more beautiful?
Well,
to me.
Koreans were beautiful to me. Yeah. Instead of being problematic, they were just wonderful.
Yeah, that's so good. Joy, the joy of the Lord.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Right. So that was good, Anna.
Yeah. You had fellowship with other missionaries. Did some missionaries question it a little?
Well, yeah, I can't really remember. It wasn't a problem.
Okay, that's good.
Well, that was good. Yeah, we had wonderful fellowship within our group as well. And kept on having prayer with Aunt Dot. And working at the nursing school.
Right.
Working with Korean women there.
Yeah.
And the patients in the hospital was wonderful. We would travel and have fellowship with other nurses, Christian fellowship. There's a hummingbird came to the hollyhock again.
Oh, just now? Oh.
Here it comes again.
Oh, there's the hummingbird. So now you're living, we can jump around. Now you're living with your daughter, your youngest daughter.
Right.
In Knoxville.
Right.
But you were tell about the different retirement homes. First you came back to America in, what year?
We lived near you and Nancy. You both lived in Northern Virginia. Mm-hmm. And we bought a house there and lived in it for about 7 years.
Really?
Finally had a yard sale. Mm-hmm. And during those 7 years, we would go back and forth to the beach.
Yeah.
And we bought a little house.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you'd call it, we didn't think of it as a fixer-upper, but eventually we tore it down and built a big house on the same lot, right next to a church.
Yeah.
And between us and the church was a big parking lot. But it was on a canal.
Yeah.
And just 1 block from the ocean.
Yeah.
The
Perfect.
last stop in Delaware, just before Maryland.
Mm-hmm. Fenwick Island.
And Fenwick Island.
And we could
Delaware.
walk to the ocean.
We could walk to the
So
ocean.
nice.
No problem. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
That was below Dewey Beach, which was in Delaware, and that was just up the highway too.
That's where
Harry's house was.
That's where you grew up, at Dewey Beach. Mm-hmm. And we went there during college. That was our summer headquarters.
Right. You stayed with your grandparents either in Milford or in
at Dewey Beach. We never stayed long in Milford.
Well, Fenwick Island was wonderful, and your children would start coming there and bringing your children, and we'd do crabbing on the canal.
Yeah.
And the children would like to see me put the crabs in a pot. They were green. You turn the heat up and they'd turn red.
Oh, and would they try to get out? Oh, poor crabs.
But we enjoyed that. And your dad had a friend. What was his name? He had a boat.
Oh, yeah.
And all the boat owners were allowed to have crab pots. They could place just so many. And his name was Lou something. Lou and Joyce Steele. Lou Steele would take Daddy in his boat, and they would get crabs, and Daddy would get to bring some of them home.
So, in that Fenwick Island beach house, before we tore it down, I painted a mural.
Yes, you did.
On the wall, remember?
Yeah, the sand dunes.
Sand dune mural. And then they tore it down, mural and all, and Dad built a mansion. He designed it. He made little squares of furniture and used the old furniture. He built it around the furniture.
I don't think so.
Sort of. Well, he used everything he could. He never wasted anything.
It was wonderful that he had a chance to build a house.
Yeah, and it was a wonderful house. And I remember him gardening with his straw hat, squatting down and gardening. Now Bill gardens, now that he's 70. I don't know, how old was Dad? 70?
Yeah.
And then you decided, how long did you live there?
I'm not sure.
Because then you decided you wanted to sell it and go to a retirement home. Why did you decide that?
Well, we'd had a couple of surgeries and difficulties health-wise.
Yeah.
And I don't remember why. I guess we decided while we were still in good health.
Yeah. You had skin melanoma removed from your leg.
Yeah, I did. I had a big surgery here. Had to be in bed. But there was a brand new place being built in Lewis. And I think that was the only place around.
Cadbury
At Lewis. And it was run by Quakers.
Okay.
And they didn't have Protestant worship services, but they had Quaker services.
Oh.
And they had a little quiet room,
Oh.
which was what we used for our Bible studies and things. But they had an auditorium, and we could have church services there. And there was no chaplain or anything, but let me think, what holiday was it? It must have been in the winter. We were snowed in and we couldn't get to church. And so your dad rose up out of bed and said, "We'll have our own." And so he did. And from then on, he started soliciting different denominations.
Dad did that.
Of pastors all over the area, Rehoboth and Lewis and outlying areas. We were very careful who we picked, but we had Lutherans and Methodists, a couple of them.
And that was allowed,
Baptists.
obviously allowed by the Quaker.
They allowed us to do it in the auditorium, and they took turns preaching. Daddy would take his turn, and Fran Baker played the piano. We had a nice congregation. It was really wonderful.
And you started some Bible studies and Scrabble partners. And did you feel like some people there were not believers? Probably.
Sure. Oh, there were all kinds of people. But we not only had it in Cadbury was a CCRC. That means Continuing Care Retirement Center. And that means when you're independent, you could do all these things, and we were. But there was the next section. If you weren't independent anymore, you could go to be helped.
Oh, yeah.
Assisted.
Yeah, on the same building.
Assisted living. And so down the halls, of course, first I should say that we chose Cadbury because it had a swimming pool.
Yeah.
And that was important.
And the name was a chocolate name.
That's right.
And it was near the ocean.
Right. And we could walk to the swimming pool, which we did every day, I guess. We really enjoyed that. It was right within our building. But in the adjacent building, assisted living, we also started worship services.
Oh,
and there was a Baptist church right down the street that God went and made friends with him and his assistant. It was a big church. And they came and took responsibility for worship services in the assisted living every Sunday.
Oh, wow.
And that is still going. In fact, those Baptists are in charge of all the worship services in Cadbury now, Fran tells me.
Cadbury Retirement Home.
In addition to that, we started worship services in the memory care. That was mostly hymn singing. And
memory care means people with Alzheimer's?
People with any kind of memory problem. There was a special little wing for them. And Daddy would go there every Sunday afternoon and have worship. We had
time for them.
Hymn sing, and through the hymn sing we had worship. It was really wonderful. We would get volunteers to play the piano, and a good time.
That's great. So you really enjoyed Cadbury years. How many years were you there, you think?
I'm not sure. I'd have to add it up. But we also started worship services in the healthcare center. People that were able to get out of their beds could come and have worship services there.
Were there 3 places? Retirement, memory, and healthcare.
Yeah.
Assisted living.
Well, 4 counting the memory care. We had different volunteers would help to take part in those services and take responsibility. So we didn't have to take all the responsibility
that'd
for
be a
it.
lot.
But meanwhile, we had sold the house and made money on it to pay for Cadbury.
Right.
And the people that bought the house changed it around a little bit. You remember that house? It had we wanted a lot of windows.
Yeah.
And we had the when you
Open.
went in the living room, there were not very many doors. You had
Open
dining room,
Yeah.
living room, sunroom, kitchen were all one big area
Yeah.
with a wall in between the kitchen and the dining
Right,
room.
right,
Well, they had some utilities on it.
Right.
Well, I don't know exactly how, but those people somehow took that wall down
Oh,
too.
dear,
I
okay.
don't know what they
Yeah,
did.
very open.
Uh-huh.
And they painted over my wall mural.
You had another mural there.
Why would they do that?
I don't know. Did they? You sure?
I thought you said they did.
Did you have a mural there?
Yeah.
What
Going
was-
up the stairs and in your room, I had two birds talking to each other with turbulent waves in your
we'll
bedroom.
have to find a picture of that.
Yeah, we'll find a picture.
I can't remember
Yeah.
that.
And then there was a typical lighthouse and sand dunes and ocean and a kite, going up the stairs.
Well, that was the mural down at the other house.
Similar.
Similar.
Yeah. I like to paint the ocean.
Well, that house was nice. When you walked in the door, it was a high ceiling, and the stairs went up, and there was no wall there either, but a chandelier that hung in front of the window. So from the church people, they could see that high window with a light in it. Yeah.
Okay. That was a nice church right there.
Oh, it was a wonderful
Yeah.
church. They were supportive of us, and we were supportive of them. I went to their prayer meetings, and
Was it Methodist?
it was Methodist, and they were really wonderful people.
St. Matthew's by the Sea.
St. Matthew's by the Sea. We had Bible studies at our house. We had, what was it called? In Ashburn, it was called Senior Citizens, the Golden Group. But in Lewis, we called it something else, and we had meetings too.
But then you sold that house and moved to Cadbury, and then you had Bible studies there too.
Oh, sure.
Oh yeah. And
At
yeah.
Cadbury. And
Yeah.
then, and of course, Paul and Eleanor would come and visit us from New Jersey. And Harry lived nearby, so we would
Yeah.
see him.
nice.
But Paul and Eleanor decided to move to Tennessee. And so that became the end of Cadbury for us, because we moved with them.
And we were overseas, and so you had and Nancy was in Alaska, right? So Paul and Eleanor were the closest
Right.
kids, so they moved to Tennessee, so you decided to move to Tennessee.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So that's when you came to Maryville, Tennessee, which is near Knoxville, which is where you went to college.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was like coming home.
Yeah.
But there were two retirement places in Maryville. We looked at both of them. One was Presbyterian, one was Methodist. And Paul and Eleanor looked them over, and I think I came down and took a look at it too, Daddy and I.
Yeah, you probably did.
But we finally moved, and when Daddy stepped off the curb into the car at Lewis, he kind of stumbled and fell a little bit, and he never quite got over it.
Really?
Yeah, we came to
Huh.
live at Shannondale, and he only lived for 6 months after that.
No, real no. I thought he was at Shannondale longer. 6 months? Oh, he had leukemia and he didn't know it. So you moved to Shannondale in the Smoky Mountains.
Right.
And back to your college.
College.
Right beside Maryville College.
That's right.
Yeah.
And a lot of people at Shannondale, I would keep calling it Cadbury,
I know.
and sometimes I still do. A lot of people at Shannondale had gone to Maryville College too. So we had a little alumni group.
Nice.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
Yeah, and we would visit you, and we bought a cabin 45 minutes up the mountain there.
Right.
We were still overseas, so we sold our beach house because you had left in Fenwick.
That's right. You hated
Lewis.
to sell it, didn't you?
No, it didn't have it wasn't really a house, and we needed a house because we were coming back to America from 9 years in Abu Dhabi and 1 in Baku. So anyway,
do you want to tell a little bit about your beach house in Lewis? It was
wonderful,
nice.
wonderful. I could walk down and sit on the sand.
That was not ocean. That was
No,
bay.
no, but the ocean was right there.
Right there.
And we could see 2 lighthouses and the ferry, and I could see waves and read my book and just walk. But it wasn't really a house. It was a townhouse, not really. But we were leaving overseas, so we needed a house. So we sold that, sadly, and bought some cabins near you in Maryville, up in the Smoky Mountains. And those cabins have become our income, huge source of income, because we just rent them out. We never have lived there.
So you can have your trips overseas.
And we've had family reunions there and Ajamani reunions there, but mostly we rent it out. So that was a nice thing about moving to Tennessee. Philip encouraged us to do that, and we've been real thankful that we did. So,
wow. Maryville was a great place, but then when Nancy got tired of Alaska and decided to come be near me, she rescued me out of Shannondale.
Because Dad passed away.
Because
so
Dad
you were
was
alone.
gone, and I had moved from independent to assisted living for little health reasons. I was doing fine there. I mean, you could walk to the dining room, you could walk to the hairdresser. You could go outdoors and walk all over the campus with a beautiful lake and houses, and I knew people in the houses, and they'd take me places. We went to a little country church and did crocheted mats for the homeless, and so I had a lot of contacts with churches and people.
You collected knitting
plastic
projects,
bags, and made yarn out of it.
No, but the knitting you sent to North Korea.
Oh, sure.
Scarves, hats.
We did that for Christian Friends of Korea. We knit squares, and people. I had knitting friends in the church in Lewis even, and that continued for years and years.
And you'd send them to Heidi Linton. And she would send it to North Korea.
Right.
And that was a
really
fun
good
project. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, that knitting project had started back in Lewis days, and that mission committee was really gung-ho. They used us hard. And after we left Lewis, we continued to keep in touch with them. They had trips over to Africa to the people that they supported. And one time, when, what was her name, took a trip, Adrian Scott, she had me collect jewelry, earrings to take to the African women.
Used earrings.
Used earrings.
But they didn't know.
People from not Cadbury. Was it Cadbury?
Lewis, yes, Cadbury.
Wait a minute. I collected earrings from the residents, and we sent them to Africa. There were all kinds of flags and things that dangled. And
well, you did that again at Shannondale.
I think I did it at Shannondale.
Yeah, and we would always come visit you and stay in the guest room, remember that? But now you have this house, so we can come stay in the house with you.
Right.
And Paul Hannon's been cooking for you, gourmet meals.
Well, when Nancy first came, Paul wasn't with her. And
from
she
Alaska.
didn't have anything. I put up a sign on the bulletin board, pray for 3 things for my daughter that's come to visit. She needs a job, she needs a car, and she needs a house.
That's all.
And so I don't know if anybody prayed or not.
But God heard.
But God heard.
Yeah.
And she worked hard on getting the job, and she finally just about gave up.
Really?
And one that she had applied for called back and said, no, we don't have that, but we have this. We wonder if you'd be interested in the housing department. And so Bridge Refugee Services
Wow, perfect.
hired her on.
Perfect.
And so she's been working with refugees ever since. And you work with refugees too.
Yeah, overseas.
And my heart is for them and for the persecuted people around
Nancy
the world.
works so hard.
So Nancy, now she's working so hard. She got the job. That meant she could get a car, and we helped her buy the house.
Yeah, yeah. Instead of giving your money to Shannondale, you helped her buy a house.
Yeah, I got some back from Shannondale, quite a bit.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, so we were sad when Dad passed away. He
used the assisted living facility.
Yeah.
It was good that we had
For
that.
hospice.
That's
He was in there for hospice.
And he died in that.
He was there only one day, I think.
He was there a short time.
Yeah.
We were ready for him to stay for a long time. We were going to bring bookcases.
Christmas
I know
tree.
We brought an easy chair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he went on up.
He did. He went to the hospital first.
Yeah.
And
he couldn't breathe very well. He had leukemia.
But he wanted us to sing to him.
And you all sang to him.
And we sang hymns around his bed.
Yeah.
And you came, and Nancy came.
Everybody
came.
Sam missed it, but he had a good visit earlier, I think. But
it was sad.
Yeah.
I remember they kept trying to take his blood pressure. Finally they couldn't get it anymore.
Yeah, and I was happy that he went because he was suffering. And suddenly he was okay.
Yeah.
He was gone.
But he wasn't in pain, and I'm thankful for that.
He wasn't?
I don't think
it seemed like he had a hard time breathing.
Yeah.
And finally he was okay.
Dying in your sleep would be the best way to go, I think.
Yeah.
Well, that was sad, but
yeah.
Nancy rescued me, and we're here in this lovely little slice of paradise. That's what, when Bohannon came, the first saw it, that's what he called it.
Slice of paradise down here in Tennessee. Mom, we didn't talk about some of your ministry of your 40 years in Korea. Dad had a TV ministry and a deaf ministry. Can you tell us about those two?
Okay, a little bit. Daddy had, television was just coming into being, black and white, of course, but people were getting TV sets, and so he used it as an evangelistic opportunity. He had different ministers come and lead little worship clips, I guess, and he would interview them. Yeah.
Okay. And then he got involved with the deaf ministry. How did that happen?
Well, the deaf ministry was quite large. Your dad was teaching John 3:16 as a textbook to teach children already knew how to read. Adults had never been taught to read Korean. So we weren't teaching English at all. We were teaching Koreans to read Korean. And we had to get experts from overseas to come help us. A literacy organization in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and a Japanese American missionary in Japan who was working with deaf people, all gathered around our huge dining room table with the Korean evangelist. He was a deaf evangelist, and he preached with all kinds of animation of whiteboard, writing, illustrating, using his body, and he repeat things again and again so make sure they understood, because it was all in sign language. And we would go to that deaf church. Well, he came as a member of a committee, and we had an artist who came and illustrated the flashcards, and it was a great ministry.
Yeah, yeah. You enjoyed the deaf people because they were very animated.
Right. And we ended up with a primer that were used with adults, deaf adults.
Great, great.
Yeah.
And they're still using it today, I'm sure.
I don't know. I think everybody's educated today.
Yeah.
The children that have grown up.
Okay, good. And then you started, after us kids left, you started going to Jeju-do, the island off of South Korea, to evangelize there.
Well, the churches were already organized, but they needed people to go to help baptize new believers.
Uh-huh.
And so we would go from church to church. They were within walking distance of each other, scattered all around the perimeter of the island, which is a circular island.
Yeah. So you've had to fly to get there.
Yeah, or we could take the ferry.
Oh. And you had a little apartment there?
Yes, we had a little apartment in the Presbytery building, and then when the Stellas, our Baptist friends, were on furlough, they let us use their apartment, so we had a real nice apartment there.
Great.
And we became wonderful friends with the minister of the big, what was the name of that church in Jeju City? Oh, they were such wonderful friends, and wonderful friends with the Stellas too.
Yeah, yeah. Didn't the Hoppers also go to Jeju-do?
Well, the Hoppers finished and retired.
Oh.
And then Daddy took his place. So we would just go to Jeju-do once or twice a year for a month at a time.
And it's a pretty island.
Oh, beautiful.
So that was nice. Yeah.
Wind, women, and walks.
Walks. Yeah, rocks surrounding all their houses. So that was, how many years did you do that?
Oh, we did maybe 3 or 4 or 5 years. Nancy came with us on several of those trips.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, Mom, so I think we've covered almost everything, except you took some amazing trips. You did a whole series on Jerusalem. So you went to Jerusalem, Israel 2 or 3 times, maybe 3 times.
Twice.
Can you tell about that real quick?
Yeah. Well, we went with Nancy and Sam first, and that was, we have a lot of pictures about it. In fact, I have a whole series of that that I've sent out along, what do you call it, slide presentation.
We did a big production
presentation.
on Jerusalem already.
Yeah, and then after that, after we retired, we went back with our performing artists group from Washington, D.C. at the invitation of the Israeli government, and sang at 3 different places in Jerusalem and Bethlehem and Nazareth, I guess.
Now, Bethlehem is where you were in the shape of a Christmas tree.
Right.
I think we have a picture of that.
The Arafats came to it.
Oh.
Yeah. And we had plenty of time to tour and look around. But there's a whole series, video series on that.
Yes, so you don't have to go into detail, but you sang about Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
Being born in Bethlehem.
We sang.
The Christmas songs.
Part of our choristers did ballet, interpretive dancing.
Wow. Okay. And if you want to know more, watch the other video of her Jerusalem trips. And then you also visited Africa a couple times.
Right. With Betty Gray and George Hardy, simultaneously with them.
Meg's parents.
And then the next time was with, and we have pictures of all the flamingos and we went to the game parks. I'm sure there's pictures of that. Dan and Meg would have those pictures. And then later, I went with Paul on a trip to visit Dan, and we met all of his co-workers, and he was living with a man with a ministry of teaching people to read the Bible. I forgot his name now. And then we went on from there, the same trip, to Baku to visit you. Paul and I did.
Yeah, that was very interesting, I thought.
Oh, it was.
Living in Azerbaijan.
Yeah.
Very interesting. The old castle wall, or the old fort there. And
We had a lot of pictures of that.
very interesting. Yeah. And then you also visited Abu Dhabi when we lived there.
When Daddy was alive.
That was before the Baku trip. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you enjoyed Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, we did. We went on the desert,
Yeah.
what do they call it? Dunbashi.
Yeah. And
We went to Dubai,
yeah.
and we remember your apartment building and meeting Bethany and Fu.
They lived there.
Memorable times.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, I think we covered a lot of your 40 years in Korea and 94 years on Earth. And you might have another 6 years if you live to be
I hope
100.
not.
Or you could have more. And we missed some things, like all the puppies and dogs we had as children, and the swing in the beach house, and thinking what we missed. Puppet shows that I made puppets and wrote puppet shows.
Right.
And I forgot to say that one of the most memorable books that helped me want to be a Christian was called The Cross and the Switchblade, about the drug addicts in New York City that all became Christians. And that really influenced me. And I think our whole family was bowled over by the grace of God.
Absolutely. Right.